Alright guys, the dreaded day has arrived where I attempt to tech for the second time ever. Today I'm going to be working on my G36. So this was my first ever airsoft gun. The gearbox has never been opened up for upgrades. The only thing that I've done is the inner barrel's been switched out and it's got a high torque motor, but the gearbox shell itself has never been popped open. And I want to take it out to play this Saturday. The problem is that the hop-up cracked and I had to buy a new one, which is right here. So the gun itself still functions. I could just slap the hop-up in and be good to go, but Christmas was a couple days ago and I have this set of 16:1 gears I'm also going to pop in there, along with the high torque motor and the 7.4 volt LiPo. Should give it some snappy response. The intro upgrades is only going to be part one. After that, I'm going to do externals and of course paint and whatnot. But just for I gotta just get the internals in there within the next 2 days, just so I can get up and running. So I'm dreading this because I say there's probably about a 75% chance that I break something and the gun won't work like it's supposed to, and there's a 100% chance that I'm going to find this whole process extremely frustrating. But you know, it's what you got to do to learn how to do this. So let's get into it.
Hello everybody, it's Jordan from a year in the future. Yes, really, a year since I recorded this video. Anyway, the first thing here I'm doing is I need to put the hop up in. So I already have the gun disassembled at this point. That's the inner barrel right there. And all I need to do is open up the hop up. It's just a stock G36 style hop up. I already had an upgraded bucking, so I'm just leaving that on and I'm just moving all the small pieces around that are necessary to fix my broken hop up. Now that I actually have the gearbox out of the gun, it's time to do the worst part, which is opening it up. So since this is an older gun, even a lot of newer guns don't have quick change springs, it doesn't have a quick change spring. So after you get the screws out, you really got to be careful so that it doesn't essentially explode in front of you and you lose all the small bits. Here I'm removing my high torque motor that I already had in there. One issue I have with version 3 gearboxes is that you gotta pull the gearbox out to get to the motor, unlike version 2s where you can just access the motor through the grip and you can replace motors in a matter of seconds. One thing I'm doing is I'm not just recording for you guys, but I'm recording every step in the process so that if I ever need to look back to figure out how to put it back together, I can see all the pieces here. And just like that, it comes apart. So getting it apart isn't really the hard part, it's going to be putting everything back together again. Still, you really want to make sure that the spring is compressed so that it doesn't shoot out and you don't lose all of your tiny components. Once I get everything out of there, I clean everything off very well, trying to get all the grease and everything off of everything that's in there. I stick the old gears in a bowl of soapy water and I pull out these new 16:1s, stick them in and shim them. It all went back together much easier than the M4 I did previously, and that wasn't that big of a deal actually. Before trying to stick it back in the gun, I test fire to make sure everything works. And this is where we run into trouble. It's as if the body of the gun is built so that wires aren't supposed to fit, which I know sounds silly because wires obviously came with it. But I was having issues getting it back in the body without it completely fraying the wires and eventually destroying one of these contacts for the motor. It was at this point that I gave up on this project for like a year. I bought the new contacts for the motor, but even after that I still could not get the gun or get the gearbox back into the body of the gun without almost completely destroying the wires. But then I came back. So even though the gun seemed to function pretty well with an 11.1, I need to use a 7.4 because that's what can fit in the battery space, and I was still having the same issue of it not working properly with the 7.4. My guess was that just from my attempts to put it back together, the wiring ring was completely shot. Luckily, I did have a MOSFET. Unluckily, I wasn't confident in pulling everything back apart to put the MOSFET in and then putting it back together without breaking something again. So essentially, I screwed up. To make myself feel better, I spent some time replacing motors in some of my other guns with version 2 gearboxes because that's easy. I took the gun to a tech at my local field to get the MOSFET installed so that it would essentially it'd replace all the wiring, which is pretty messed up, and hopefully fix the gun so I could use it with the 7.4. The MOSFET came with Dean's connectors, so Dean's connectors were put in the gun, but my batteries had Dean's connectors, so I bought a bunch of Dean's connectors on Amazon for like $6, and I replaced one of my 7.4 volt batteries, female connectors, with the female Dean's.
Alright, so after like a year, my G36 is finally internally upgraded, which is honestly, feels so great to say that, really. So after the issue with the wiring, I took it to a tech at my local airsoft field, and it only cost $30 for them to put the MOSFET in that I already had. So as far as the project goes, I think, you know, it went pretty good for our first tech project. Like, I opened the gearbox, I got everything out, I put the gears in, and I installed the pieces properly. The biggest issue was that the wires just get worn down so much from taking the gearbox out and putting the gearbox back in that it needed new wires, and I wasn't comfortable putting the MOSFET in myself. And it was so cheap that I might as well pay somebody to get it done. Now it sounds pretty great. Full auto. This is with a 7.4 volt fully charged LiPo. I got Dean's connectors now because the MOSFET came with Dean's connectors, so I need to put the Dean's connectors on the battery. And the semi, very snappy. The gun's very loud. But I'm very pleased where it's at now. There's two things that I still gotta do, really. My selector switch, ever since the very first time I took this out to play when I was like 14 years old, has been slidey. It doesn't lock into place because it fell off like the very first game I played with it, and I put it back on, but it's missing the spring and the little pin that locks it in place. And the other thing is painting it. The selector switch, I've said it for years, and it might still be years till it fix it. Like, it can wait. It's like a $16 piece for something where I can still select fire most of the time. The gun still functions, so that's why I've always been iffy about paying for it, because it's a $16 piece for that, but I know I should fix it, and I will eventually. And then getting on painting. I will be painting this, and that's going to be a little surprise for you guys. So, as always, if you like my projects, leave a like, leave a sub, and I'll see you in the next one.